Hello, Brobs. So I picked up Cemetery Nights by Stephen Dobyns at a thrift store for 50 cents. So I can't really complain about losing money. I would have bought it regardless if I thought it was good or bad. And I mainly bought it because it says Cemetery Nights. And it basically has a funeral scene on the front, so it's always nice. But when I got to the poem Funeral, I'll turn on the light for this. I expected, edgy, postmodernist insight into death. But instead, I get this. Funeral. When her coffin had been carried from the room, the house remained exactly as she had arranged it, her thoughts present in the position of each chair, in the snapshots and the dead upon the mantel, and by the kitchen door a smudge where her hand had often rested. And that part is not too bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. Her grandson, and usually when someone mentions their grandson or something like this, son, not son, that's when everything goes bad. And in this case, it does. Her grandson, by himself in the house, drags a chair over to that spot, climbs up and just touches his tongue to the mark, and in its salt and faint taste of cinnamon, 100 bright occasions return to him. With his eyes shut and his tongue pressed to the wood, he can feel the house unfurl its wings, rise up and glide over the fields of wheat and small farms, like a horned owl from the branch of a dead tree. His heart quickens with excitement, no telling where he is going, and will she be waiting? Very sentimental. Not particularly insightful on the nature of life and death, although you could say the innocence of youth and etc., etc. And at first I thought it was a sonnet, and I don't even really know what triggered me to think of Robinson Jeffers after reading this, but I went to one of his poems, and I thought of this poem in particular because I opened it, and here it is, in comparison to Dobyns, which is probably an unfair comparison. Compensation, but I'm trying to contrast the classic poets of the early 20th century and the postmodernists. Not that I'm a huge reader of poetry anymore, because I think after the deaths of Pound and Cummings and Jeffers in the 60s, I guess Pound lived longer, didn't he? That poetry basically died. Compensation, solitude that unmakes me one of men, in snow-white hands brings singular recompense, evening me with kindlier natures, when on the needled pinewood the cold dews condense, about the hour of Rigel, fallen from heaven in winter-time, or when the long night tides sigh blindly from the sand dune backward driven, or when on storm wings of the north wind rides the foam scud with the cormorants, or when passes a horse or dog with brown affectionate eyes, or autumn frosts are pricked by earliest grasses, or whirring from her cover a quail flies, why even in humanity beauty and good show from the mountainside of solitude. And yeah, that is a poem. That, I don't know what that is. And I think Jeffers states it best in this poem, Point Joe, where he says, permanent things are what is needful in a poem. Things temporally, not temporarily, of great dimension, things continually renewed or always present. Grass that is made each year equals the mountains in her past and future. Fashionable and momentary things we need not see nor speak of. And I agree. And I think that's the huge difference here. That's, an incidental, and everyone will say, wow, it was a big moment in the kid's life when his grandmama died. But, it's sentimentality. It's important to the person, but it's not important in the greater aspect of what's important to the world. And to prove this point, I'll read you Jeffers' "Oh Lovely Rock," which mentions his son and a friend who went camping with them. "Oh lovely rock, we stayed the night in the pathless gorge of Ventana Creek up the East Fork. The rock walls and the mountain ridges hung forest on forest above our heads, maple and redwood, laurel, oak, madrone, up to the high and slender Santa Lucian firs that stare up the cataracts of Slide Rock to the star-colored precipices. We lay on gravel and kept a little campfire for warmth. Past midnight, only 2 or 3 coals glowed red in the cooling darkness. I laid a clutch of dead bay leaves on the ember ends and felted dry sticks across them and lay down again. The revived flame lighted my sleeping son's face and his companions, and the vertical face of the great gorge wall across the stream. Light leaves overhead danced in the fire's breath. Tree trunks were seen. It was the rock wall that fascinated my eyes and mind. Nothing strange. Light gray diorite with 2 or 3 slanting seams in it, smooth polished by the endless attrition of slides and floods. No fern, nor lichen, pure naked rock. As if I were seeing rock for the first time, as if I were seeing through the flame-lit surface into the real and bodily and living rock. Nothing strange. I cannot tell you how strange. The silent passion, the deep nobility and childlike loveliness. This fate going on outside our fates. It is here in the mountain like a grave, smiling child. I shall die, and my boys will live and die. Our world will go on through its rapid agonies of change and discovery. This age will die, and wolves have howled in the snow around a new Bethlehem. This rock will be here, grave, earnest, not passive. The energies that are its atoms will still be bearing the whole mountain above. And I, many packed centuries ago, felt its intense reality with love and wonder. This lonely rock. I mean, that's fucking outstanding. And Jeffers reads it on his... He went on one tour and made a reading, and did a reading of some of his poems for Cadmon or whatever one of those records was. He does a really good reading of this. Yeah, unbelievable. So to me, that's the difference. And I was just glancing through Dobyns just to see if he was still alive. And he is. And then let's assign poets to Stephen Dobyns' triangle. This is his theory of... I've never read this, so I have no clue. Let's assign poets. Stephen Dobyns, in his best words, best order, gives the idea that the strength of poems forms a triangle. If you will, draw a triangle on a piece of paper. On each side of the triangle, put down thought, image, emotion, so that every side of the triangle is assigned one of those words. Most decent poets embody 2 out of those 3. We could say Thomas Transtromer is a fairly cerebral poet who I'd say embodies thought and image primarily in his work. The rules are simple. Post the poet and give us where they'd land on Dobyns' triangle, etc., etc. Well, I think his triangle forms this, and it's a bit pubic, shall I say. Yeah, that's my cerebral poet